itself.
I have unfortunate news, everybody. I was muted on my side for a lot of that. So hello, my name's Gavin. I have been speaking to my casters, and they've been speaking to me one-sided. Very, very, very amateur mistake. I apologize. But we got to hear my casters' lovely voices. We have Doc and Win. I'm Gavin, as you now know. And welcome to Stronghold Series 2, a King of the Hill series for Wargroove. Ash versus Zeronix coming up. They'll be playing on Valley of the Fallen. You just heard Win's thoughts on the clock, completely unprovoked. And we'll just get into game, you know? We'll just pass by that embarrassment. I mean, I gave out some pretty... I gave the best casting of my life in that 5 minutes I was muted. Wouldn't you guys agree?
I would agree.
It was pretty good. I would say so.
Absolutely Oscar worthy.
Thank you.
To never be heard by the rest of the world.
Right.
Wow. I am as red in the face as one of the vaulters will be when we get started. Both players are getting ready. They're playing Valley of the Fallen. For those of you who missed last Stronghold series, we did have connection issues, which caused us to have to push these finals to today. They will be playing the same map, the same COs. They'll simply be going back to turn number 1. Both players are getting ready. They're going to ready up any second. Waiting for Ash, and there they go.
So it's worth noting that the big reason why Ash picked the Valder matchup on this and elected to go, or I believe he did choose to go second, right? His main reasoning was he's not familiar with this map pool, so he felt like he should mirror the opening to minimize the chance that he falls for some very flawed opening that destroys him early on without a really chance to play. So we're gonna see him maybe mirror again, or maybe he's done some study between this game and the last game. So it looks like there is already a divergence.
Now, me and Doc had casted this naturally earlier in the week, and when I know that you were actually in the crowd watching, what are your thoughts on Valley of the Fallen, and especially in the context of both of these players?
So I think Valley's a really interesting map. Valley naturally kind of forms into this rather wide front, but it's not necessarily it's not a singular wide front in the same way that a map like, say, Titan's Cradle functions as a singular wide front. It is a very wide front in the idea that you have to feed these 2 racks that are fairly far back along 4 separate resource lines. And so you end up with, rather than, very, very large skirmishes across a wider front, you end up with small skirmishes because you have to choose where you feed your resources. And so because of that, it ends up being very interesting. You have a lot of options. You can break out in these little clearing areas between the mountains near the villages, or you can end up kind of amassing some forces in the central area and then having a much larger fight either near this flagstone or around these central areas as you start to push in towards HQs.
Yeah, following up on that, something that Gavin pointed out last time that I'm going to point out again is shoutouts to Exmo for really good use of decorations around the flagstone.
I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to sound like a broken record, but it's my favorite thing about this map is just the readability of Flagstone compared to Skirmish.
Honestly, that is
so.
super important, and I think that that's just really good design because it takes nothing away from the map and only adds to the map. The decorations are there and we should use them, especially when they have such a practical use.
I take credit for complaining so much that Xmo did that. I take like 90% credit for that.
So something else to note before we really get into having to talk about decision-making potential and all of that along these maps, is that the counter for first turn advantage on this map is very unique in comparison to a lot of other maps we've seen in the competitive pool through the Groove of War tournament and etc. Generally speaking, most of those maps start you off with an additional soldier pre-deployed from your already captured racks. That's generally a fairly easy way to counter first turn advantage. Just give your opponent a soldier in a reasonable position that they would, generally have it on turn one. This map does it very differently. Instead, player one has their commander start on the mountain tile to the left of their pre-captured village, while player two starts with it to the left of their pre-captured village, while player one starts with it to the next to the pre-captured tower. So the commander is delayed by an additional turn for player one.
So we do see the balloon coming out. It seems to be the natural strat that you have to go on this map.
Mm-hmm. Very much. That balloon is very important for accelerating supply lines. You've got these lovely tree clusters and mountains that are very much inhibiting the speed with which you can send units to the front from these barracks. So that balloon becomes increasingly important as time goes on, and the longer skirmishes occur, the more important that balloon becomes.
It's a pretty threatening knight already on the left side of the map.
That is a scary knight.
I think one thing that's going to give knights a lot of value in this map is just how long the supply lines are.
Mm-hmm.
On these kind of large maps, the fact that spearmen only have 3 movement is going to be even bigger of an issue than it normally is.
It is kind of hard for the knights to play off of the side, though. It is pretty hard to navigate all these woods in the middle of the map, though.
Well, that is true. I think...
Not that those knights aren't useless on the side, mind you.
Right. But something I want to point out is that knights are really... One spot where they're really powerful is just in the center, because they can go right through that flagstone. So you can spread in lots of different things up front. Like, even if you say... An interesting location to put a knight is right above the village that Zeronix just captured with Valder. If you put it there, then you have options to move it to the right and through the center, and to support down south as well.
That's true.
So there's definitely quite a few good options, but you do need to spend a turn or two developing them. This knight here is being really useful for Zeronix right now, just because it's limiting what this mage can do, basically. And if he can apply pressure in this area, he might be able to grind out an economic advantage. And one thing that makes... one of the ideas behind this map is that the sides are purely for economic advantage, since they're so far removed from the headquarters and where the main fighting is going to be. But well, normally an economic advantage of, say, 100 or 200 or even 300 for if it's a short time isn't really an issue on most maps. However, once you start getting into 400 or 500 a turn kind of advantages, then that can actually snowball into a pretty significant advantage as the game goes on.
So if I recall correctly from our first game, I think Zeronix went for first trebuchet. Correct? I think Ash is going to be fielding the first one this time around.
Last time, Zeronix opened with a ballista and Ash responded with a trebuchet. If I remember correctly. So this time, Zeronix hasn't built a ballista yet, and I think that he had built it on turn 6. So Ash has built his trebuchet a turn earlier than he did last time. It looks like his balloon timing was done to line up with it, and Zeronix has not built a balloon yet.
You have to somewhat assume that both players do have a decent grip on their economy. I think it is. I don't think it's too bold to say that between Ash and Zeronix, we have two of the top 3 to 5 players here in this game right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, for sure.
If not the number 1 and number 2 player. I think a few people would like to argue for that number 2 spot, but this is pretty much, as far as tracked Wargroove, probably one of the highest rated matches we'll see.
Definitely, definitely.
Ash looks like he's taking his time a bit on this turn. He has to really think about what he does on this left side. And it's part of the unforgiving nature of this map is that if he screws up here, it takes a really long time to send new units to basically fix that position.
And you know what, Doc, actually, we discussed that in the days leading up to this Stronghold series about Ash's feelings towards map design like this, where you have to really play the same opening very optimally. He plays it well, but he's not really a fan of this type of map.
Well, he does. He did copy Zeronix last time because he wasn't aware. Not that that's a bad strategy if you don't know what you're doing. And he seems to be doing all right here, and this is definitely the kind of map that he likes the most. When we talk about really punishing openings, we're talking about like Hinterlands or Emberwing. Emberwings I haven't seen played, but from what I've heard and from what I can see, that map, if you don't open properly in the first like 5 or 6 turns, then you might just lose on turn 7 because, well, a dragon's at your headquarters kind of situations. So this map definitely is not as punishing as those maps, but it definitely isn't something that you can ignore. And I think there's merits to both. On one hand, it's a good way to have players rewarded for preparation and just overall skill. But at the same time, it can be, oh, you're not better than me. You just memorized how to do the first however many moves, and then it starts feeling like chess all over again.
Right.
Anyone who's played chess knows the suffering of playing against someone who's like, oh, you didn't open properly. You just lose now.
Ash is going to dip into his bank time a little bit here. Looks like, okay, his turn is going to not by much.
Just a little bit. Looks like, I imagine Zeronix is probably going to hit that mage. It should do enough damage to make it a worthwhile trade for him, I believe.
So what was he supposed to do with that mage? Was he supposed to cap anyways and retreat back? Or was there a better play for that mage than to move into the night range?
For what the best play was, but I think I would have pulled it back. Since the mage should be taking somewhere around like it'll probably take like 80 to 70 kind of numbers, maybe even more than that. Since it's let's see, it's about 120 without crit. So 30%, or I should say 70% of that is going to be, yeah, it should be like down to 2 health after this hit. And it's gonna do like nothing to that knight. But it does slow down the knight, so that might be what he's trying to do there. He might also just be feeling that this mage isn't providing any more value after it captured everything.
Right.
And so he could just be choosing to sacrifice it.
Which, you know, we've had plenty of discussions on units just not being worth gold after they've been played. Right? Like,
yeah,
there's no reason to keep it, and there's no reason to keep it for just, hey, I'm going to lose value if I lose it. I mean, if it does its job, it does its job.
Of course. Yeah.
And if you divert the knight like you said, and you said that putting that knight in the center would make it much stronger, then this mage eating this knight attack would do a great job of dispositioning. 22 left on the mage, 11 damage on the knight. If you've watched our streams in the past, I will mention that we typically have animations on, just because it's better, we think, on a presentation standpoint. Because we are running timers this tournament, we do have animations turned off just to keep everything synchronized and fair. We'll do our best to help the readability.
One thing about getting that mage so heavily damaged is that this now lets Zeronix use this really forward mage tower, and harpies have a fair bit of value because they have all these mountains to crit on. They can go over all this forest and mountains that get in the way of land units. So he has those options now. Dragons are possibly quite strong in this map too, given by how many properties are on roads, and there's quite a few roads on this map.
Overall, not really the worst tempo loss for Ashe. And certainly Zeronix is sacrificing some level of positioning to make this push on the left happen.
Yeah, because if he wins it, right, and he captures maybe say 1 to 2 of these, then how many turns does that take before it becomes relevant, considering you have to make all that income, then you have to spend it, and then those more expensive and usually better units will still take time to even reach the front line. So it's an investment with a very long payoff far in the future. And we see a dragon. That could be
You're talking
difficult
about
for Ashton.
Oh man. If you're Wins having a few technical difficulties, but if you're talking about the knight losing center positioning, that dragon will make up for it very, very quickly. That dragon will reach... Yeah. It's a 20 by 20 map. The dragon has 8 movement. I mean, it's going to get anywhere it needs to get.
It won't quite reach the headquarters this turn, but next turn it will be in range, and that's pretty powerful.
So scary. Valder won't take long to get into range either. Valder will... Okay, well, Valder's not going to go for the HQ either. But Valder could have moved on the flagstone and been there in 2 turns as well.
I think something like that isn't going to happen just because this balloon will be able to cover one of the headquarters. Then you have like the mountains, and there's enough units here that I don't think there's a lethal threat if Ashe plays defensively and correctly, which I have no doubts of his ability to do so. So I don't imagine this being a lethal, but I think this dragon, the most powerful thing about it is how much this just hurts this trebuchet, because Ashe has no anti-air right now. Has to deal with this dragon, and it's not quite as easy to cover this trebuchet on the map with this much harsh terrain.
So Ashe is having a little bit of trouble right now. He just had a very strange error, a Halley exception on Entity. We're going to confirm he's back.
I've heard of that before.
We're going to pause the clock until we can confirm he's back into the game.
They did recently just update the Switch version.
I would be very, very... Valder grooved so hard he killed my game, says Ashe.
It looks very close to the Halley exception. Might just be something you can't fix because it looks like it's an issue with the engine. It's Halley exception on file, right? On Entity? Oh man. Ashe, what are you doing?
Ashe is trying to restart now. Again, we are pausing the timer until he gets back in. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, everyone says...
I think So Ash did let us know he had that error about a minute ago, or rather a minute before the end of Zero's turn. So I'm gonna laugh if he gets back in this game and sees this fucking dragon just here all of a sudden, like, oh, that's what I missed. Pardon my language, but
Okay, it looks like
Ash is back in. He's gonna now see the current state of the board and
see the dragon.
Yeah.
No, this dragon is. Let's see. How does Ash respond to this? Well, building his options are basically build a witch, which I don't hate. I think that's a fine option. Ballista is probably not correct here, I want to say. Just because then his siege unit ratio is just ridiculous. Double mage is an option as well, which might be one of the weakest options, but it's also the one that is not too taxing.
Yeah, I mean your double mages are going to eventually be useful against a pikeman later, as opposed to your witch.
The problem with a double mage is that also means that's 800 gold he's spending for this turn. He won't build anything meaningful from his mage tower, and that's just a really weak build turn in my opinion. So I think that all these options are kind of rough. I personally would probably go for the witch in this situation, just because I think air control on this map probably isn't useless, and I can imagine this unit getting to the clumps where witches become extremely valuable.
I think Win has rejoined us. Welcome, friend.
Yeah, apparently Discord was like, hey, do you want to update? And I said no, and it was like, too bad, we're gonna update. Technology. What would we do without it?
It's fine. You DC'd the same time Ash did, so that's where we stand right now. But we are back. Yeah, so Dragon out from Zeronix. What do you think the response is when...
I definitely agree that Witch is the good option here. I think Witch from the back tower is probably the better option than Witch from the side tower. I would think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
I think
the front tower is just too useful.
But if you're not, it
gets you headquarters faster even.
But if you don't play the witch from the top tower, then what's the top tower there for? What's it doing instead?
Like, I see Win's point of view is that it protects this bottom left-hand corner. But if I'm Ash, I think you write off this bottom right.
Yeah, it's gone no matter what.
I think it's already kind of too late for that.
As a matter of fact, that village, by the way, is on a. Is it on a road? I believe it's on a road. Yes.
No, it's
not. It's disconnected. I apologize. It's hard to see.
That is a little tough to see.
So, for reference, for those of you who don't know if buildings are on roads, this 7 health village here. Above this pikeman is off a road. You can tell by the disconnected rocks, but this barracks to the right very obviously is on the road. You can see the pure connection there. Not incredibly important until a dragon is knocking on your door, but here we are.
Another way to very easily
tell. Be able to kill it.
Go for it. Another way to easily tell is in the overview screen. So on PC, if you right-click on the village, leading into the gate, there will actually be a road if the village is on a road.
Good to know. We're all learning things today. Doc, oh, by the way, Ash did agree with you. He put the witch on the bottom bottom tower.
You mean Win?
Yep.
That was Win. I was saying, nah, he built to the top one.
No, as in Ash agrees with Win. Sorry.
Yeah. For me, it's less about actually protecting that bottom corner, and it's more the idea that effectively, so the dragon is going to take at minimum 2 turns to reach the Treb and the Spearman and the Balloon that are kind of sitting on that front, right? Which can get there in 2 turns,
right?
But if the dragon also decides to go down towards this line of pikemen, Witch can still get there. Basically, from where the dragon is, unless the dragon goes backwards into Ash's own properties, Witch will be able to get there in the same amount of time.
Right.
Whereas if he'd spawned Witch from the tower on the left, it would have taken potentially 3 turns to be able to combat the dragon if the dragon had gone more towards the spearman.
So, interesting fact, that mage actually... Oh, it can still be hit. But I don't think you want to hit it. If you are...
It feels like a little bit of a debate right there.
Well, you could just hit the village with the knight, or the village with the knight and throw the swordsman on it. That might be the best way to go about it. Because then you still leave the knight with some room to do stuff.
Ooh, hunted. Brutal. Just
Zeronix getting groove up again. That's going to be useful. Let's talk about that trebuchet positioning from Ash. What do you think is his end goal, that 7 health village? Is that the only reason he built that trebuchet?
I mean, I don't know if that's his end goal, but that is the most easily attainable goal at the moment.
Very much so.
I mean, obviously he didn't build the trebuchet just for that village, I would assume. But I mean, you take the village, you have a balloon there.
Yeah.
It's not hard to move up to that top right flank either. Ballista coming out, by the way.
Right. I think the real reason for that trebuchet is because he knows that Zeronix wants to build a ballista and probably drop it right below that 7 health village. By putting his trebuchet here, he can answer that no problem. It's worth noting that, sure, this is not too much of a ballista on headquarters rush, the same way Dueling Peaks is, because the trebuchet, a ballista does like no damage to a stronghold based on the fact that strongholds have a 5% healing. It'll basically net like 3 damage or like 5 damage a turn, but not very much.
You are watching this game right now in Twitch chat. First off, thank you so much for joining us. Second off, in chat, drop the link there. If you think you could do better than either of these players, sign up for the next Stronghold series. We try to host it about 2 times a month to once a month. Try to get the best quality players we can to show off the best that Wargroove has. Best way to get into a Stronghold series is to post results in other tournaments. Groove of War is the competitive Discord for Wargroove. Check it out on Twitch chat in the YouTube description. Next Groove of War should be coming soon. Skits just made a small note that they're working hard at the next map pool. Are either of you a part of that discussion?
For the next map pool? Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of things we have to consider. There have been a lot of good maps that we kind of have to go through. So that's between a bunch of new submissions, Maury churning out somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 maps at a time. There's a lot of things to look at and consider for this map pool.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure too on the map committee, given how well the last map pool was accepted. So,
right.
Good luck to all of you.
Yes, praise our Lord and Savior based stalemate.
To be fair, part of the one of the criticisms
as a
of
community,
right?
Yep. People played Skirmish because it was one of the less bad maps too.
Right.
Big oof there.
You guys
I don't think any of us were ready for that to stalemate as hard as
not
it
not that we're affiliated with Groove of War, or this is a Groove of War broadcast, but you guys might be a little brutal. Nah, no. Again, we're
No,
all
I
learning
have
together.
I have a lot of faith in them that they're going to do better, and they've learned a lot. I've talked to members, and I have a lot of faith that the next one will be better. And I think a part of it is just the community, as Gavin has been emphasizing, really learning a lot from it. And it's partially just, the players learning how to break maps better than they could build them. Like, Stalemate, as much as we give it crap for the vast majority of players, is a perfectly serviceable map. It's only when you get into players like Ash, Zeronix, Vatex, me, Junkmail, like, when we get into people like that, then it's like, oh, this is going to turn into Stalemate because we know the game well enough. But for the vast majority of the tournament, it was played a lot. It didn't have that many stalemates. I mean, I've seen a lot of games that didn't stalemate. It's just once you get to that level of play, then it's stalemate. So, good map pools are mostly going to be affected by the circle of like 10 to 15 really good players in the pool right now.
I agree.
The gap is definitely closing, I think. Like when the first game first came out, there was a big gap between people who could perform and people who couldn't. But the gap seems to be closing nowadays. There's definitely some more tier 2, tier 3 kind of players, which is really good for the game.
Ash uses his entire gold budget this turn.
So he built a lot more anti-air tech. He's really buying a lot to deal with this dragon. And I think this Ballista can also be used for other stuff.
Right.
But
Ballista can also handle Zero's balloon, for instance.
Yep, and that Ballista, his enemy's Ballista. He might be looking to try to set something up on Zeronix's headquarters, but I think it's going to be hard as long as Balder is in this corner, because this is the spot to the top up and right of Balder, and the one to the up and right of that one are two of the only spots that get a crit on headquarters on this map from a Trebuchet.
Trebuchet kills the center village. Balder Groove Skeleton takes the village up top right. Ash makes it out just before his overtime bank time starts. So, pretty optimal timing from Ash on that turn. Meanwhile, this dragon is making this game a Lord of the Rings reference.
Are you saying that each side has twin towers?
I guess he's planning to just wall out that
Or two towers?
dragon. Yeah, he's gonna wall for it so that it doesn't die to the witch, which is a good call.
Zeronix is definitely... I mean, we like to joke about Ash's pace of play. Zeronix is doing the best he can to speed up his turn. He definitely has a plan in mind here. You know, actually, we uploaded Ash vs. Vi on YouTube last week, and the top comment was, I feel like Ash's gameplay is like Idris from StarCraft 2. I don't know how many of you played StarCraft 2, but that was the best comment I've ever read. A long macro game player who gets all of his matches defined by opponents' cheesy tactics.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That was an entertaining entertaining comment.
Yeah, I think when the game does boil down to a stalemate or both sides have built up a huge thing and they're just waiting for the other person to blink, that's when Ash is at his strongest, right? Mm-hmm. So his game plan can even be extremely defensive because he's not playing to get an advantage in the early game. He's just trying to keep things even until the late game. And that's a big part of Ash's strategy, in my opinion.
And that also said...
that.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna basically kind of... I didn't really have anything else to say.
Well, I was gonna say that Ash is a big proponent of shorter turn timers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I will say, this is a bit of an experiment. we're able to do this very uniquely because we're not running a tournament. You can't really have a chess clock rule across an entire tournament, right? But I know a lot of people have like told us, you know, it's a cool idea, you should make it even shorter. And for next Stronghold series, we absolutely will. Like, we're going to start pressuring these players a lot more.
Yeah, and I think one thing that will help watchability is going for Fisher time as well, since in the future we would really like to do that. Since right now, for example, Ash, his shortest turn will probably be 5 minutes because he wants to use all the time he can, and it makes sense for him to do that. With Fisher, it rewards you for saying, oh yeah, I don't need the whole 5 minutes, I only need like 2 minutes. I'll probably be out of 3 minutes, so it'll be a lot quicker, especially in the early game, I imagine.
Definitely.
Since these early turns feel slow because, well, the players are just thinking very far ahead because they have time.
You're
they should
forced
use it.
to. You're forced to think far ahead on this map. If your line by the time you get into turn 10 is not good, you come into this situation where Ash is really under threat on the south side of the map. But
yeah, he's not pushing the north very hard, which I think is letting Zeronix push this way more than he should be able to. Like, if he had forced Zeronix to invest tech units up north, then there probably wouldn't be a whole Ballista Knight Dragon line all the way over here.
And I think Zeronix does have a pretty strong defense, like up top as well. If you look at the armies on the top half of the map, I mean, they look pretty even. All of the tech went to the south side of the map. I mean, when you look at the Ballista and the Witch, it is a little hard to tell who's actually winning in the south. But, I mean, definitely the line itself with these pikemen up in this clump in the center middle. I mean, that looks like a strong position, at least eyeballing it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about so I think one thing that Ash is thinking about is how to deal with the bottom, because Zeronix has not got an answer for that Witch, and it might be late enough in the game that it's time for the Witch to just go in there and start spamming Hex. Hex again and again and again can very quickly annihilate an army. It doesn't, I mean, you do 10%, then you can get off again and get off again. But it is costly to use repeatedly. So
Ballista
lots of
and Mage
strategic
loaded
there.
up into the balloon.
I think he's gonna bring this up north because Zeronix put his Ballista. I think I'm not a big fan of where Zeronix places Ballista because Ash can move his Trebuchet up and threaten that Ballista really well, so that Ballista is not going to be on attack. Then Ash might set up his own Ballista, giving him the advantage here. And with a Treb and a Ballista, it'll be very hard for this Pikeman force to really break into attacking him.
You know what, though? Where it is now, that Ballista does have a lot of options if it doesn't move, though. It does have the HQ, which, again, it's not like Ballistas are great siege units or buildings, but it does reinforce this south push. A pikeman is in range. It can hit the building as well. Like, there are a lot of things for this Ballista to actually do, not just push this Trebuchet off, which that Trebuchet needs to be pushed off anyways to secure this
the Trebuchet
village.
is going to push that Ballista off, is what I'm saying. And I think it's definitely going to happen this turn. Because, like, people look at the Ballista Trebuchet matchup. The Ballista is going to hit the Trebuchet and do, like, 15 to 20 damage. Then the Trebuchet is going to one-shot the Ballista. Yep. There it is. So that Ballista is going to be forced off. And Ash looks like he's kind of putting pressure up here, which is interesting. This
That's
Ballista
strong.
positioning is interesting.
Ash's tech is just way stronger in position and strength right now on the south side of the map. This is actually, like, even with the dragon behind, that dragon has very limited options. This is not a good situation for Zero at the moment.
I'm not going to say I told you so in regard to Witch from the bottom tower, but I told you so. I don't claim to
Is
be
the-
good at this game, but
is-
every so often I have a galaxy brain moment, and it just happens.
Is the witch there a good move? I mean, I'd assume the ballista's gonna retreat, but that's pretty bold, putting the witch in the ballista range anyways.
He might be looking to kill the dragon. He's dragon hunting. Yeah, that dragon can't escape, potentially.
The dragon can escape into the bottom left corner.
Oh, but he can escape up north and just surround it with spearmen. He could definitely do something like that. But
Zero
he's
could
definitely just... Yeah, he has to body block for that dragon if he wants it to not die.
Well, again, he
Ash
can
is
put
very
it.
much asking. Oh, go ahead.
He can put it in the bottom left corner and then protect it with maybe a spawn from the center tower. I don't really think that's where he would want to spend his gold, but that is also another option. He could
Ash
play.
is very. I
ahead.
think Ash is asking Zero how much he values this dragon right now. You know, he's very much saying, is your dragon worth your ballista? At this point, you know, because Ash can or Zero can make this decision to kill the witch or kill another unit like you did there, and then just loses the ballista to the Treb. The witch comes in, starts chipping away at this dragon.
Trying to quickly
Okay.
make sure that that dragon can't be protected this turn.
Yeah,
It
That
does
was
have
a really clever line, I think.
it does have one exposed side. There's not enough units to completely protect the dragon, but
yeah. And I don't think.
He
Still
might
just
actually
movement, right?
be able to pull it off in a rather... Will the mage be able to one-shot that knight, is my question, with crit. I don't have the numbers on that. But if he can do that, or if that's not a possible one-shot, then Zeronix, I believe, can actually save his dragon. Oh, that's really clever. He can load units onto the balloon and drop them down and make a wall for that dragon. That is a very...
forces the witch to go all the
advanced
way
way.
around it.
Yeah. So looking at
Yeah. That does work. That works very
Oh,
well because
boy.
he can put Westwood statue, and then make a giant wall the witch would have to travel through because the witch can't travel through ground units. Correct?
Mhm.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, that
So he's
is
gonna...
holy crap. This witch is now
Oh
in
wait,
a lot
but
of trouble.
it's fine. It's fine because Ash can just ballista away that that knight. Then he can send the spearman to kill the swordsman, and the witch can go in there to kill the dragon.
Yeah, the knight's
witch
in
is
Treb
fine.
range.
Yeah, okay. The witch is fine. The witch is gonna kill the dragon, no problem.
This flipped very fast. Wow, we literally just said last turn that Ash had a really strong position. It looks the exact opposite this turn.
That was a very strong push and solution to that problem.
So maybe the witch in the South Tower wasn't the right move. Just kidding. Balloon replacement, ballista on the map. He is determined to get air superiority right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Terrifying position to be in, looking at the south border here.
I think what Zeronix might do is just throw this balloon and just drop those pikemen right beside that trebuchet so that they can start threatening headquarters. Nope, he's going for that.
Oh, no, he's trapping the witch.
I think that's a mistake because the witch is gonna have no problem getting out.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, then again, he does mean that he doesn't get a move. It is pinning his trebuchet to an extent, so I guess that's his
What do
logic.
you mean the witch can get out easy?
Ash trebuchet is the knight, then the spearman should be able to one-shot that 7 health swordsman.
Okay.
Uncrit average roll into swordsman from a spear is like 80.
Yeah.
You know,
And shout out to that 69 health swordsman.
Oh, he got the power of 69. He might live.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really hyped up for the theoretical wall of units to the west of that statue. This is like a little less exciting, but equally fun. Wow, this is a doozy of a puzzle. Ash
And
needs to
again,
figure out
if-
how to solve this and also how to win, which is a little daunting of a task at the moment.
Right.
This might be basically over. There's like a 10-unit differential at this point.
I never say it's over when I'm watching Ash. I have been roasted. I've been roasted for that before. Doc, you've been a part of several of those roasts. But I think you actually might be right.
I don't think I've ever called games that wrong before.
In fairness, I'm sure his opponent, the majority of those other times, also hasn't been Zeronix.
I'll put it this way, Doc. The last time you played Ash, you made me a liar. So I try not to doubt Ash anymore. That is, by the way, the most viewed video on my YouTube channel. Is me solo casting, MSB making a cameo. But, me solo casting for 3 hours, Ash methodically making me a liar.
I think it's one of those positions that looked really bad for him, but wasn't, just because Niru's power was really powerful.
So what's your professional take? With that doubt in mind, what's your professional take on this match?
I still think this is as bad a situation as Red Halo versus Ash Game 2. I'll say I think it's almost of that level of advantage that Zeronix has. That was the Rambling Range game.
Okay, so where did Ash go wrong if we think that Ash is in major disadvantage? Which,
he built
all jokes
trebuchets
aside,
too greedily. I would say that's number one. And then probably this witch positioning was too greedy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because, thinking about it, he can get the witch out and kill the dragon, but he loses the trebuchet up here, which is a pretty big loss. Yes, and that means that trebuchet is not going to be hitting that ballista if he does this line. But I think he has to do that line still. Mages don't do enough damage to dragons, I think, that he can just use the dragon instead. Well, they do a lot.
So he's gonna probably... He's gonna do the escape that you described.
Yep.
Does Witch go after Dragon, or does Witch make a run for it?
Witch goes for Dragon. I am fairly certain on this one.
I think Witch killing Dragon is
too good.
Pretty much the only way this doesn't become a complete loss.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at unit for unit, once this Dragon goes away, this isn't nearly as scary. I mean, it's still a slow choke, but it's not, wow, this is bad.
Well, no, what makes this position really bad is that trebuchet is going to die now. Almost certainly. Unless, wait, does that actually work and I'm just really dumb?
What's going to kill the trebuchet if the dragon's not there?
No, I was thinking the spearman positioning earlier. Oh, he is doing the mage hit into that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still wondering, how much damage does Mage Crit do? Mage Crit is a 2x multiplier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the mage wouldn't have had enough to kill that knight.
Well, yeah, the average roll in the knight is like 30, 35, 30, something like that.
Yeah. I wasn't sure how I didn't do the math correctly, but yeah, that spearman, I guess, would it die from one crit, one normal spearman hit, and a treb hit? Probably. Oh, okay. He's just throwing that, that's an alright spot.
That effectively kills the dragon, but it can still, I think it can still reinforce somewhere.
Yeah, it can reinforce from any village.
That very much delays it being effective for another
one turn.
So the play for Zeronix is going to be probably Wargroove onto that treb, I think.
The dragon can reinforce on the village next to the HQ, get back to full, and still be in a threatening position to come right back and kill a unit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Assuming, I mean, the mage is also there to handle the witch, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt you to say that another thing that Zeronix can do is move the spearman to the left of Ash's spearman, down, hit the spearman, bring the full health spearman to the top left-hand corner of the flagstone, bring the other 9 health one into the other spearman, and that combined should kill that spearman, I believe. And then this spearman can actually get a crit hit on that trebuchet, so that trebuchet can actually be dealt with without Valder's groove, which might let him actually use his groove to hit the other. I'm wondering if that can hit the other trebuchet, because if he can do that, then that will probably be game winning.
Well, you have to find a way to deal with the spearman on top of.
Oh, he can do that. He can do that no problem. He has a swordsman and a spearman crit into it, and then he can bring Valder all the way in there. Okay, yeah, this is the same thing I was describing, just probably the better side to use.
That was my plan, but better. Okay, that does disable trebuchet.
Yeah, because then he can throw the other ballista at it, maybe. So I think he throws the swordsman and 1 crit spearman into this spearman, should kill it. Then he brings Valder in, groove, and hit that trebuchet. And the only question if that is too aggressive, and then the remaining health on the trebuchets can kill him, but I don't think so. Zeronix is bringing another ballista to the front line. That's just gonna keep locking him out of the game, I think. Oh, he's going for here, so he's just gonna finish off that trebuchet then, which is also fine. It's a bit good still, you know.
What do you think he does with the dragon? Does he reinforce it?
Yeah. It's like a 6% discount on the dragon. Oh, I guess he low-rolled. He low-rolled on the swordsman hit, I guess, so he had to throw the dragon at it. Slash, it was always going to.
This unit count is 37 to 27, been 10 above for Zeronix.
I don't know if he needed to throw the dragon at it, because he hasn't hit anything with the ballista this turn. He could have just finished it with the ballista instead.
He can hit the headquarters, though.
That's true, he can hit the headquarters with the ballista.
Or just reposition that ballista somewhere disgusting with this balloon.
Absolutely.
He has options.
We have reached the stage in the game where the conga line is beginning to form.
And he does move the ballista, which I think he's going to put another ballista there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to say no to that witch sticking around. Although the witch might just still hex again.
Thank you so much to everyone who's watching as this game gets a little out of control. If you'd like to watch future competitive Wargroove games, we host it on this channel. We cover Groove of War. We host our own show match series, which you're watching now, Stronghold Series. Give a quick follow. Would love to see you guys around more often. Below the channel is my YouTube channel. VODs are uploaded there, but hit that follow button. Like and subscribe if you are interested in watching more competitive Wargroove. I'm Gavin. I'm joined once again by Doc and Win. Thank you so much for joining me on the commentary. Dragon does get killed by the Hex. That was a pretty baller Hex, actually, but not sure the end result will be enough.
I think where things went wrong for Ash, it largely comes down to not putting enough pressure up top.
I agree.
And he kind of just went, okay, I guess I'll hold some economic assets and not really threaten much with it. Then he proceeded to build extremely greedy. Like, he built like 2 trebuchets really early on, which was his way of trying to deal with the ballista. But on this map, ballistas are just so much better because of the way the terrain is laid out. Likely somewhat deliberately by Exmo to make trebuchets as a whole a little less strong. So because ballistas had some really good positions, they were just cheaper and safer units as a whole. And then he didn't deal with that dragon super well, which I think, is the 3 main takeaways from this game. Yeah, I think commander positioning is a good example of what I mean by his aggression difference. So Ash actually uses his commander all the way up to capture that 6 health village. That's the sort of the path that his Valder took. But Zeronix, his Valder did not go, I think, even down to the 5th row. I think it went down to about the 5th row and never lower than that, which let Valder just be a part of this whole upper fight, constantly charging groove and just spitting out value. Here comes a giant, which is alright. I can't imagine it doing much at this point. He can probably buy a few turns, but there goes the witch. The ballista is starting to chip away at it.
And I do have to apologize for Doc for the inability for him to unsee the Revenant sprite as a guy with a giant beard in a helmet.
I mean, isn't it that is what it is, though, right?
No, it's a fur collar.
Wait.
It's a fur collar on
No. I'm just kidding. I knew that. You made me second guess myself, though.
Right, this sprite just looks like a huge beard. Clearly the best sprite in the game.
Yeah. I'm just looking at also how things went, and I think another thing that's compounding as well is because Zeronix didn't pressure the top, all the spearmen that should have been locked up there went mid, and that also was just ridiculous, as we saw what these spearmen could do. It looks like he's starting the countdown timer. Starting to throw everything he got at it.
6. That'd be a pretty fun thing to do in competitive Wargroove for Twitch chat to count
Only
down.
if you yell Happy New Year when the HQ goes.
We try to have some fun, we have long games here in competitive Wargroove, so.
And that knight has set up to crit the headquarters, and I don't think there's a single unit that can stop it. Nope, not a single unit can stop it. That is game.
Wow.
That is very rough.
I think you're right. I think that is a guaranteed lethal. Spearmans can't block. Giant can't block. Archer can't block. Nothing can break into that tree line to stop that 6-tile move into the HQ.
And word from the Discord is that Ash has resigned, and that is GG.
All right. Yeah, that they declared it in chat. They didn't call the actual resignation. I don't know if Ash just left the lobby or not.
Oh, if they did, it's just the game doesn't let you resign your other person's turn properly.
Right.
So since Zeronix hits end turn, the game will immediately end.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have already hit end turn now and basically guarantees to win next turn.
Right.
Oh wow, what a strong showing by Zeronix.
He's showing that I don't think he was in the first tournament, but I think he's showing that he is a force to be reckoned with.
Yep, there's some semblance of a GG sheen. Yeah. All right. Well.
All right.
So wow, that was methodical. Again, Zeronix showing us how he became the Groove of War 2 champion, and now will take the mantle of Stronghold Series champion. Ash held on to it for 2 weeks now, 3 wins in a row against worthy opponents, but Zeronix will be taking that crown now.
Ash, so the record between Ash and Zeronix, as far as I know, is they had a best of 3 during the last Groove of War that Zeronix won. Ash did win one of those games, and then they just played today. I think so far they're 3-1 as far as I know.
Zeronix will be taking on 2 more opponents for the next Stronghold series. We're gonna quickly pull him into this, try to see if he was interested in joining this call. For a quick post-game interview, post-game commentary. But yeah. That was good. Zeronix, are you here, bud?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Congratulations on the win, sir.
Thank you.
What were your thoughts on that game? Did you expect it to go that well for you?
I didn't expect it to go that well. I think Ash made a couple of key mistakes that really let me break through. That turn that I got the Knight crit on his Ballista was probably the turn that it all came crashing down for him. I think up to there was still alright. Yeah, and a very well played game to Ash other than that one turn.
And then anyone else can feel free to grill our champion here. Once again,
No, I was
Chris.
thinking that was your line was very interesting to me since it took me quite a while to. I don't think I really saw it before you did it, and I'm not sure if I would have seen it. It was a very interesting line to see, and I have to go back and review it later.
In small part, that line appeared because of a lack of aggression top. I mean, that's kind of why I framed the question the way I did. I mean, it seems like that game kind of like you were able to answer it fairly confidently.
Yeah, I think the key difference in our early builds was I went for Knight and Dragon, Ash went for Balloon and Treb. So, Balloon and Treb is a good line, I think, but it doesn't have the same, speed as Knight and Dragon. And as you see, and that turn he mispositioned the Witch. I was able to get free hits on 2 of his spears and then block the Dragon with the Knight. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't built the Knight.
Are we going to be? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you had really good control of your Knight, and I think that's something I want to look more into because Knights are definitely one of those units that are a bit skill testing since their crit is very difficult to manage, and because they're a mobile units generally are the most demanding units to use well.
I'll ask kind of one of those bold headliner questions. You've now won Groove of War 2, which theoretically had better competition than Groove of War 1. You have made a repeat victory to take the Stronghold Series King of the Hill Championship. Where do you think competitive Wargroove goes from here? Do you think this is about as optimized as it gets based on maps? What do you think? Will we see the day where Zeronix falls, basically?
I don't want to say I'm infallible. I just think I have, an understanding of the game that's maybe a bit better than some other people. I definitely don't think I understand the game completely. And if I an analogy to Advanced Wars by Web, Advanced Wars by Web started in and we're still, innovating, discovering new things. So I definitely wouldn't say that Wargroove, which is a game that's like 2 months old, it's solved in any sense. We definitely will see a lot better maps in the future, and I'm very excited for where competitive Wargroove goes.
I'll just chime into the skill ceiling arguments. Is first of all, Wargroove has a lot of mechanics to master, just between some weird damage numbers, crit conditions add a huge amount to the skill ceiling. And the second thing is, map design can totally change it. Like, the skill ceiling on Skirmish has absolutely been reached. It's been reached because if you can tell on it, you've reached the skill ceiling. You can't do any better on that map. But a map like Hinterland Hijinks or Hinterland Hijinks, we have nowhere. We don't even know what the best. There's like 5 openings still being considered. We have absolutely not even become close to the skill ceiling.
I think another thing to consider too is that this is a patchable game, right? You know, they
absolutely.
can and have changed units around, albeit it's only been commanders currently, but you know, tweaking the damage number on a single unit can drastically change the way every single unit in the game is played.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, totally.
So that is...
I think, say unit costs were adjusted slightly, we might see a whole different meta, or the damage numbers are adjusted slightly. There's a lot of potential for mods to change that.
If you could make one balance change, what would you make then? What would you like?
Spears cost 250.
250 spearmen?
250 spearmen, and everything else unchanged. I think that there's a small achievable change, and it wouldn't change too much about the game, but it will probably make the meta a lot healthier. Bring the spears more in line to where their value is, you know, so that they're not overpowered.
250 is a big increase in cost.
Hey, but that seems to be kind of the change you would need to make to equal them to the meta.
Definitely. But I've definitely heard different numbers around the 200, and then making dogs 150 is another one I hear a lot. I would like to see dogs more, because I think they are an interesting unit with an interesting crit condition.
They are.
They're hard to justify buying, I find, a lot of the time.
Yeah. The main problem with dogs is their crit is harder to activate than spears, because, you know, spears just stand next to each other. But dog, you have to get a unit next to the enemy unit first. More inconvenient, and also they just die to spears. Like, they take so much damage from spears and do so little damage to spears. So as long as spears are king, we'll never see dogs.
So the reason I asked to begin with is, you know, the game can change. Zeronix is our current champion, has a lot of accolades, but he's definitely fallible. I think he would agree. If you're interested, sign up for Stronghold Series. Challenge him in Groove of War. Competitive Wargroove is definitely not solved in any regard. Any closing thoughts? Zeronix, again, congratulations on your win. Any closing thoughts from any of you as we wrap up this Stronghold series?
I think I've said everything I want to say. Thank you to Zeronix and Ash for giving us that game.
Yeah.
It was a great game to watch. Sorry about the delays, but Chucklefish servers are going to be servers, right?
Yeah, definitely shout out to
Servers
the
not
audience
gonna
who stuck out to watch both halves of the Stronghold series. Hopefully we'll be a little bit more organized. Next Stronghold series should be in about 3 to 4 weeks. Zeronix will take on 2 more challengers, again trying to find the best of the best and showcase some strong competitive Wargroove. So I'll go ahead and call it here. I'm Gavin. I'm joined by Doc and Win. Zeronix, our champion. Thank you for stopping by for the interview, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for hosting the game.
Not a problem.
No problem.
We will see you guys next time for Groove of War or Stronghold Series, whichever comes first. Give a follow. You're watching Competitive Wargroove, and we'll be your home for it in the near future.